Hello and welcome to a cover story conversation. I have with me Ashok Tandon. He is a former journalist, but more importantly, he's been the media advisor in the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. He was an additional secretary in the Vajpayee PMO from 98 to 2004, and he's written a book on the Vajpayee years called Atal Sansmaran. Welcome to this conversation, Ashok ji. Good to have you here and for a conversation after a very long time, really.
Thank you.
In fact, I remember when you were a media advisor, how many times we used to call you for, explain some policy decision or to just find out, what Atalji is saying because he was a man, मतलब बहुत कम words में बहुत कुछ कह देते थे. Do you remember those days?
Of course, you can't forget that.
Can't forget that. But for you, looking back at the Vajpayee years, which do you think, he's had really, if you look at it, three terms as prime minister. One was a 13-day government, then one was 1 year, and then one was 5 years. Yet, I think one of, if you just look at the growth of the man as a politician, his speech when he demitted office, every time his speech when he demitted, he knew he's coming back. So it was like, he was setting the tone for the next session, really.
Well, you can say that, but after the 13-day government fell, because Mr. Vajpayee did not face the vote of confidence, and but he made a speech, forceful
Hmm.
speech, before going to Rashtrapati Bhavan to submit his resignation. But in that particular speech, you very rightly said that actually set the tone for his coming back again, because the way he narrated that whole episode, because Priya, you remember, allegations were being leveled in the house itself among the opposition benches that Vajpayee is also now, forming a government and trying to be in power, horse trading and money
हाँ जी.
power and all that, engineering defections, etc. In response to that, he made a very passionate remark. He said in Hindi
Hmm.
that मुझ पर आरोप लग रहे हैं कि हम भी खरीद फरोश करके और जोड़ तोड़ करके सरकार बनाकर चला रहे हैं. ऐसी सरकार को मैं चूंटी से भी छूना नहीं चाहूंगा. एंड देन ही सेड कि इस देश में पार्टियां आएंगी, बनेंगी, टूटेंगी, सरकारें आएंगी, जाएंगी, लेकिन ये देश रहना चाहिए, इस देश का लोकतंत्र रहना चाहिए. सो दैट स्पीच, आई थिंक इवन नाउ thousands of youngsters and politicians, they watch it on YouTube. So that actually set the tone for his coming back in 1998 again. So you can say that every time he faced a crisis, he actually did come back twice, and the third time as well.
Yes, he was a politician who knew, how to make an exit for entry, but also how to make an exit, with a lot of grace and dignity. But, I just want to go back to that first speech because you write in your book how he had not planned to form the government. But, when he went to Rashtrapati Bhavan, what happened? Just narrate to us, how he was offered the government on a platter really by the president.
Yeah, it's a very interesting anecdote, because normally when there is a hung parliament, the president would first invite the leader of the largest single party to explore whether he can form the government or not. Now, in this case, when Vajpayee went to Rashtrapati Bhavan, Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma handed over a letter to him, appointing him the president of the prime minister of the country. Now, that was a bit of a surprise for Mr. Vajpayee, and he had not, could not say anything. So he came back and discussed with the party leaders, and everybody in the party was of the opinion that how can we form the government? We don't have the numbers, so we should immediately go and say sorry, no to the president. But Pramod Mahajan, a very young, dynamic leader of the party at that time, he said no. Every time, the allegations are that the BJP is only a party of opposition. They can never come to power. This time, we have been given a chance. We have not asked for it. So if the president has appointed Atalji as the prime minister, let's take the plunge and we will see whatever happens. Even if we lose the trust vote, no problem. If nobody else joins us, we will face the situation and we will also face the criticism. But we must take a plunge this time. Otherwise, we will always be dubbed as a party of the opposition. No, in that meeting, practically everybody was opposed to forming the government. In fact, if I recall correctly, Sushma Swaraj was very vocal, and they had a bit of exchange of, heated exchanges also. But finally, Pramod Mahajan carried the day. He could convince everybody that let's take the plan, and they did. And eventually, as we discussed earlier, Vajpayee did not face the trust vote. Before that, he resigned and went to the Rashtrapati and said no. But I must say, Priya, that
Hmm.
that was the beginning of a new era for BJP. Because by the time we reached 1998, NDA was formed, and several parties of divergent views, they joined the
Hmm.
NDA under Vajpayee. And that is how the 98 government was formed. So Pramod Mahajan that way proved right. His assessment was right that let's take the plunge, and other parties later on joined. In 1996, the BJP was an untouchable in Indian politics. And by 1998, we had Chandrababu Naidu coming in, parties of the South, and all the socialist bloc. And so that, I think, was a very a turning point in the history of BJP.
Yeah, because as you said, instead of being seen as a party of opposition, it began also to be seen as a party of government. And Vajpayee earned the tag of a former prime minister. That helps in, perception building also. But then, his prime ministership, we've already, he had 23 allies. He knew he was a man who could balance all the allies, but they were not easy allies to handle, especially the women, Jayalalitha and Mamta Banerjee. So a little bit about how he handled the two of them. He was very paternal and, he was the leader with them, but they threw a lot of tantrums.
No, first of all of them who joined the NDA, they
Mm,
accepted Vajpayee's leadership. It was practically precisely due to Vajpayee's leadership that they joined NDA. Now, having joined that, all of them had tremendous respect for Vajpayee. Imagine in that government, there were stalwarts like George Fernandez, Sharad Yadav, Nitish Kumar, and Mamta Banerjee, Vaiko, and also Nitish and Sharad Yadav, Nitish Kumar, as I said, Naveen Patnaik. They were leaders in their own right, heading their own parties. But they
mm.
had tremendous respect for Vajpayee, so they continued to be there. But in a party of 23 parties coalition, there would be certainly problems. And as you said, from time to time, particularly the parties of the Tamil Nadu were, sometime it was AIK supporting NDA, the other
Mm.
time it was DMK. But he faced the situation, and I think he led the NDA in a very successful manner.
Why did Jayalalitha withdraw support? What is the real story?
No, I have not gone into that detail in my book, but the fact remains that she did leave the NDA at one time, and let's not go into it because then the DMK came in. So I think they had their own politics. Tamil Nadu politics as maybe one of the factors behind all the developments between DMK and non DMK joining and leaving the NDA.
But you also write when the Vajpayee government fell in 98 by one vote, there was a move, he was all set to call for fresh elections, but there was a move within the BJP, not the NDA so much, to elect another leader and try and stake claim the way Gujral and Gowda had done. You write about that part.
No, it was 1999, and
99, sorry.
it was not a move from within the BJP. It will be wrong to say that, but the fact remains there was a move. At whose instance the move was there, I have not written because I am not really privy about what happened at that time. But the very fact that Mamta Banerjee, MDMK leader Vaiko, Naveen Patnaik, they all opposed any such move. And in fact, Mamta went on record to say, no Vajpayee, no NDA. So that means the move was, scuttled at the very beginning, at the initial stages. Therefore, it could not move forward because Mamta and Vaiko were so vocal in their criticism of any NDA government led by somebody else other than Vajpayee. So therefore, uh, no government could be formed, and also no government could be formed by the opposition as well. So
Hmm.
therefore, no, that's why the election was called, and there was a midterm poll, and Mr. Vajpayee won with a better majority, and then he ruled for another 5 years.
Who was his most favorite ally that he had the best equation with, or the most comfortable equation?
I think, as we all know, the Akali Dal was a very long time ally of the BJP, but I think the socialists, they joined the NDA, but they never tried to create any trouble for Mr. Vajpayee, including a veteran socialist like George Fernandez, Sharad Yadav, even Nitish Kumar. So they continue to be a very strong ally, barring the DMK, ADMK. But I think as far as Mr. Vajpayee's leadership was concerned, MDMK, Vaiko, and Naveen Patnaik, and Mamta Banerjee, they were a very strong supporter of Mr. Vajpayee as leader of the NDA, as the Prime Minister.
Now, the hot potato question, the Vajpayee Advani equation. I mean, a lot has been speculated, a lot has been talked about it. How did you see it? You had the ringside view, really.
See, Priya, these two tallest leaders of the BJP, were working together from the beginning. When party was down, it just had only two MPs. Even then, they were the tallest leaders. So they, in a way, they built the party, and they took the party to such a height. And as two-man team, I think they had a perfect equation. There were no problems. When they formed the government, even in the NDA government, all the three governments, they were a two-man team. They were obviously taking all the vital decisions. There were no fundamental differences. Maybe here and there on some issue there might be difference of opinion, but I think they were a very strong team of two leaders, and they took practically all the decision. And so I don't think there was any problem within between the two, and they were complementary to each other. They had tremendous respect for each other, although Mr. Vajpayee was senior to Advani, but they had a perfect equation. I don't think there was any problem between them.
This move to didn't Advani feel cheated that he didn't get his chance at being prime minister? There was a move when for the post of president. You know, should Vajpayee become president and leave the prime ministership vacant for Advani? I mean, who else? So you did not read anything into that?
See, if you recall, Advani unilaterally announced that Vajpayee would be our prime ministerial candidate. No, there was no discussion in parliamentary board or any other forum, but Advani unilaterally announced, and everybody accepted it. So if Advani could say that Vajpayee is our prime ministerial candidate, so obviously he knew that he is our senior most leader. No, when you are talking about the particular instance, that was when the NDA was to select a presidential candidate. There was a presidential election taking place, and there were at least two very prominent names were doing the rounds. One was Dr. P.C. Alexander, who was
Hmm.
governor of Maharashtra, and the other was the incumbent vice president, Krishna Kant. So these two names were being speculated in the media. And there was then a suggestion that why not BJP put up its own prime presidential candidate? We are the single largest party. We have a large number of support also among the allies. So why not BJP the own candidate? And in the context of that, there was a suggestion voted that let Atalji move to Rashtrapati Bhavan as President of India.
Who
And
made the
once
suggestions?
no, I won't name any particular person, but the fact is that there was a definite move, a
But
suggestion.
does the threads of that point to Advani camp?
No, I don't think so, because the this particular suggestion was made in a very, if I think, in a very honest manner. There was no move behind that,
Hmm.
and in that case, I agree with you that if Atalji had gone to Rashtrapati Bhavan, the obvious choice for the prime ministership would have been Advani ji, no doubt about it.
Hmm.
But Priya, the pertinent question and the point in this whole context is that why Atalji said no to moving to the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Okay.
And the observation which he made in our presence, and we were all there, it is not that hearsay. He said in a parliamentary democracy, prime minister is the most powerful leader. He's the popular leader also. And he is prime minister by virtue of a mandate given to him by the people. in a parliamentary democracy. So, if that popular leader, the powerful leader, enjoying the majority of the people's support, if he decides to take advantage of that majority in the electoral college and becomes the president, it will be a very bad precedent, because our parliamentary democracy is based on the Westminster model of Britain.
Hmm.
In that model, the prime minister is the most powerful leader. And if he decides to take advantage of the majority and moves to Rashtrapati Bhavan, it will not be a very healthy practice or a tradition. And he would be the last person to set such a bad precedent. That was the idea behind it. So therefore, the move was not at all even entertained at Mr. Vajpayee's level.
So precedents were important to Vajpayee ji. You also mentioned how the early elections, that the India shining time when elections were preponed, he was not in favor of that, but he still went away with the majority. If you would tell that story and what he told you.
Yeah, so Mr. Vajpayee was a great parliamentarian, and he had strong belief and conviction in the parliamentary democracy, its conventions, its practices. So, deviating from the parliament practices, I think he was not at all in favor of that. So, therefore, he put his foot down as far as moving to Rashtrapati Bhavan is concerned. The other important aspect of his personality was that he was a man of consensus. He always wanted to, take everybody along. And it was in that context when, if you remember, in December 2003, BJP had won Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Chhattisgarh assembly elections. And there was a euphoria within the party that why not call early election of Lok Sabha, so that because we are in a very comfortable position. And there was a party conference in Hyderabad. There, the decision was taken to advance the election by 6 months. And Vajpayee kept quiet. The decision was taken, and that's why we all know the elections were held, early elections were held in 2004. On way back in the aircraft, we in fact asked Atalji that, Atalji, why did you keep quiet? And he got the point, what we are trying to
Ask.
find out. He said, if I had asked that let's have election on time, everybody would have agreed. But if the elections were held on time in October, and if we had lost, then everybody would have said, Vajpayee, for the sake of his 6 month prime ministership, almost we have lost the election which we were about to win. We were winning. So I don't want to face that. So therefore, I agreed with the majority view, and that is how the elections were held 6 months in advance. But eventually, as you know, even the early election also, the NDA lost.
Yes, you had
And
a rather unfortunate.
nobody blamed Mr. Vajpayee for that.
And Pramod Mahajan said I became the fall guy, but obviously it was not his call to make, really, to have the early elections. No one else took the blame for that.
No,
But
no, it was a consensus.
that India shining
Majority
campaign.
view. Majority view was that let's go for early poll.
A little bit about yourself. When you first met him, how did you come to be in the Vajpayee PMO? Just how did that happen? And when you first met him?
No, actually, my induction into the PMO was also an accident. I
Acha.
was sounded. I was sounded to become the PIO, the Principal Information Officer, like the DG PIB now. And as you know, what happened was in the very first cabinet meeting, the agenda item was enhancing the retirement age from 58 to 60. So that was adopted. And the person whom I was going to replace got 2 years extension. So retirement age increased. So then I wanted to go back, but Atalji said, no, no, you remain here. I don't have anybody for the media relations. That is how I continued in the PMO. But it was a surprise move for me as well. I was not at all prepared for it. But gradually we learned. You also know how things were shaping in the early days of the second term, but but it was a very nice experience. It was very difficult to work as part of his team, but gradually we picked up the courage and then went on and on. but it was he was very nice to all his teammates, and the atmosphere was very informal. You also were, in a way, part of the Vajpayee household. You could walk in any time, so you could
Hmm.
see that all of us had a very comfortable time. Even at Manali, you also used to visit Manali during the summer vacation, and it was a family-like atmosphere in the PMO, old PMO, particularly the close team. And I,
Yes.
since was a political appointee, so I got access into the core team, and we had a wonderful time.
It really was. We had it was more so much fun covering the PMO, and we all got a break also when he took his holiday to Manali. The entire media moved to Manali, and we also got a bit of a break thanks to him. But in terms of handling his media, because like I said in the beginning, he is so enigmatic. His statements I still remember: "Not tired, not retired," or his that hand gesture of his one gesture only would be decoded in so many ways. So that task really came to you a lot of times also. How did
No, Atalji was a man of few words, and sometime he would, indicate in a very sign language kind of it. So we had to understand what exactly he's trying to say. And Mr. Shakti Sinha in his book has also mentioned that to understand what Prime Minister wanted was a very difficult thing. But everybody realized that we know what exactly is expected of us. But in the media relations, I had absolutely no problem because Atalji never asked me about media coverage, whether it is right or wrong, something is being published or not. In fact, I have mentioned in the book that at one stage there was some misreporting of a serious nature. So we said we'll have to do some damage control. So he started laughing. What damage control is? How do you do damage control? Tell us. So he was not in favor of this kind of phrase being used in the media relations. And he always believed that India has a free press and journalists should do their professional job honestly. And if they are doing their job professionally and thoroughly and honestly, why should we be getting involved in it and trying to stop them? So he was man who believed in freedom of the press. There is no doubt about it. That's why we had no problem in the media relations at that time. You also know that he was very media friendly. Media
of course.
could interact with him, stop him from moving and asking for a bite, and you were always obliged. That kind of equation the media enjoyed with him, and that was something very, in fact, helpful as I am concerned. So I had no problem.
Yeah, he had his own goodwill, but you were also dealing. I think maybe that was the last of even Manmohan Singh's time, of the big editor. You had these editorial egos also to balance. Ek ko interview mil gaya, to dusra wala used to. Where do they throw a tantrum? It used to land up at Ashok Tandon's office. I remember.
No, but practically everybody got a chance. The only thing was who approached us first. But you remember we used to organize a press meet. Like one occasion, all women journalists were invited
I
for a
recall
cup of
that.
tea with him. And if I am not wrong, even the girls who were working on the desk were also invited, which
Correct.
was rather unusual. And it was very exciting for the young budding journalists, women journalists, to be at the Prime Minister residence for a cup of tea. And then invariably we would organize a meeting with the Hindi editors, the language editors, and any editor could get an appointment and walk in and meet him. So that way, it was a wonderful time. We enjoyed it thoroughly.
That is true. I remember it all too well. I'm going to take a break and come back, and I'm going to focus on one or two political milestones that you have mentioned in the book, but after a very quick break. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to a Cover Story Conversation. I'm in conversation with Ashok Tandon. He's written a book on his time in the Vajpayee PMO called Atal Sansmaran. He was, of course, handling the media for the Vajpayee, for Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So he also wrote about, the nuclear tests. That was his first big decision, really, when he came back in 98 or 1998 as the Prime Minister. One of the first things he undertook, was it planned? What was his reaction after that and the damage control he had to do vis-a-vis the US?
Yes, it was planned, no doubt about it, because when he first formed the government in 1996, as the story goes, at Rashtrapati Bhavan swearing-in ceremony, the outgoing Prime Minister Narasimha Rao handed over a chit to Mr. Vajpayee, and which indicated that something which he could not accomplish needs to be done now, and that was the nuclear test. And that's why the first thing Mr. Vajpayee did after becoming Prime Minister for the second time in 1998 was to go for a nuclear test. But one instance which I have mentioned in my book is that the US was not very keen to see Vajpayee as the Prime Minister of India. I have quoted from a declassified US document which indicates that the then US Ambassador in India, Frank Wisner, had sent a report to Washington which indicated that the US should not favor Vajpayee. The reason he gave was that he had met Vajpayee before the 1996 election, and Vajpayee's body language indicated that if he comes to power, he will do the nuclear test, which he did. So that way, US was not very keen to see. Of course, they could not do anything. It's the Indian public which elects the prime minister. But later on, after the nuclear test, sanctions were imposed by the US as well as all the Western countries, and India had to face tough time. But the best part was the entire country was united at that time, including the opposition. And Vajpayee sent a number of emissaries to different world capitals,
Yes.
and that included a cross section of the Indian political spectrum. In fact, the former Prime Minister Indra Kumar Gujral also volunteered that he will go to certain countries to lobby for India's case. And that is why gradually we know sanctions were also relaxed, and India US relations also became normal and became, in fact, quite positive subsequently during Clinton's regime.
Clinton's regime.
And Vajpayee and Clinton had excellent equation between them.
Yes, even during the Kargil war, there was reach out with Clinton that happened. But before that, the Lahore bus yatra, I think the images of a prime minister who was willing to risk his political capital for the greater good. I mean, which other prime minister would take that bus across the Wagah border?
Yeah.
Again, I remember you were part of that team. So the reception he got there, did he feel let down then by Musharraf, what Musharraf did?
No, this was a very calculated risk which Mr. Vajpayee took. He knew that perhaps he may be the only prime minister who can take such a risk because he enjoyed the public opinion. And he was also convinced that some efforts should be made to normalize relations with Pakistan. As we all know, he always said, you can change friend, but not your neighbor. And that's why the risk was taken. But even the setback which we got by Musharraf, who engineered Kargil thing, public opinion was not against Vajpayee. In fact, he was supported by the world opinion also, that at least there is a prime minister who is taking an initiative to restore peace with the neighbor and also strike to solve the Jammu and Kashmir issue. And so that part also, if you link it with his appeal when he went to Srinagar and addressed a huge public meeting in which he said, we want to resolve this bilateral issue in the spirit of Insaniyat, Jamhuriyat, and Kashmiriyat. The word Kashmiriyat really was appreciated by people in the valley, and that is how he tried his best. He continued to try to normalize the relation and find some amicable solution of the lingering issue of Jammu and Kashmir.
No, in fact, that was even after the Kargil war, he won the election after that also. So his political capital was very much intact despite the, let down by Musharraf. But, if you say what is the Vajpayee legacy, what would you say?
I think his legacy was number one is that India has to strengthen its parliamentary democracy because that is root of our independence. Having won independence in 1947, we adopted parliamentary democratic system, and this has to be strengthened. For that, all segments of the society, all political parties need to work towards that, which he did, and that's why he always had excellent relation with the opposition, because he knew that in a parliamentary democracy rests on two pillars. That is the ruling party as well as the opposition. And in that context, all his efforts in parliament as a parliamentarian and even as a prime minister was to ensure that there is no threat to our parliamentary democracy. The other was that even if it's a single largest party or government or a coalition government, there has to be a consensus, national consensus on issues, not only within your NDA, but national consensus on all crucial issues, particularly related to security and also foreign affairs. And as we all know, he learned this from Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, who sent Vajpayee as leader of the Indian delegation to UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva. So that legacy and that tradition of relation between, like his relation with first Prime Minister Nehru, Indira Gandhi as Prime Minister, and then Narasimha Rao also. So that was a legacy which he built, and he wanted that this should continue if Indian parliamentary democracy is to survive.
Before I let you go, I must ask you about the Kandahar episode also. You wrote how you had to do media management when Jaswant Singh was taking a media team to Kandahar, and you had to step in to avoid a fiasco.
Yes, it was very unfortunate episode because India had decided to release the terrorists
Masood.
to get the hostages free, but nobody realized that the then Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaswant Singh, will be taking a press party with him in the same aircraft. And I got to know because there were protests from other journalists who were at the airport trying to get into the press party. And
Mm.
I got to know about it. And then obviously it was a very wrong move and we had to stop it. So that time, the XP division spokesperson was Mr. Raminder Jassal. By mistake in my book, I have mentioned it is Navtej Sarna. So I stand
Yeah.
corrected. It was Jassal, not
Hmm.
Navtej
Karna.
Sarna. So I got in touch with Jassal and said, as you know, the bureaucrats will say no comment, and then we had to stop it. So I managed to get it. Then the book I have mentioned, I called residents, and then Atalji's foster daughter, Namita, uh, was disturbed. I said, you will have to wake up the Prime Minister because Jaswant Singh will not listen to me or anybody else. So the Prime Minister was woken up in the middle of his afternoon siesta, and they spoke to each other. But then the press party was withdrawn. Nobody was. But one woman journalist, she refused to budge.
I think we
She
know who
said,
it is.
and then we had to do some, exercise with the help of the women security. But nobody went in that press party.
Which makes sense. Have you ever seen the Prime Minister lose his cool or get angry? I mean, I can think of that one retort that he gave, not tired, not retired to the RSS. But have you ever seen him get angry with someone?
No, no, I don't think Atalji would get angry. If he's not happy with something, or if I may say, even if he's annoyed, he will keep quiet. His silence was the biggest snub if he wants to give to somebody, or some kind of even punishment. If he's not saying something, if he's not talking to somebody, that means he's not happy with him. But no, he never lost his cool. But even this comment of not tired or retired
Huh?
was not in a very angry mood. It was in the context of the demand being made by a section of the RSS, particularly K.S. Sudarshan,
Sudarshan.
that that Vajpayee should retire. And in
Hmm.
one of his speeches, he said, "Not tired, not retired." That means he is not retiring, which he didn't. And but there was no heated exchanges or any argument with any RSS leader or even with any official. He was a great listener. He was a man of very few words. His one word comment and one liner would send a message. Maybe even shivers across the bureaucrats if Atalji said one thing, just one sentence. So that was his style of function. Man of very few words, but his positive response was also in very, very limited words, and his denial or refusal to accept any proposal was also in a very limited words. So he never lost his cool.
Yeah, on that note, thank you so much for talking to us and for writing a book, which is really a legacy, to help us try and capture the times of one of India's finest prime ministers, the poet, PM, the statesman. That was really an era gone by. And thank you for capturing it for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.